During the Trump presidency, a series of lethal actions carried out by U.S. forces both abroad and at home sparked sustained allegations that the regime normalized extrajudicial killing. From airstrikes on small boats in international waters to opaque bombing campaigns in Africa and fatal encounters between federal agents and civilians on U.S. soil, critics argue the administration repeatedly stretched, reinterpreted, or outright ignored legal limits on the use of lethal force. While Trump consistently defended these actions as lawful and necessary, lawsuits, human rights complaints, and investigative reporting have painted a far more troubling picture, one in which civilians were killed without charge, trial, or meaningful accountability. The clearest legal challenge emerged after a deadly U.S. military strike on a small boat in the Caribbean Sea in October. Two men from Las Cuevas, a fishing village in Trinidad, 26-year-old Chad Joseph and 41-year-old Rishi Samaru, were among 6 people killed when their vessel was destroyed by a U.S. airstrike while returning from Venezuela. Civil rights attorneys later filed a federal lawsuit on behalf of the families, arguing that the strike constituted an unlawful killing of civilians in international waters. According to the complaint, neither man was charged with any crime, and no evidence was publicly produced showing the boat carried weapons, drugs, or contraband. The Trump White House claimed the vessel was affiliated with a designated terrorist organization, but declined to specify which group or explain how that determination was made. Trump himself shared footage of the strike online, celebrating it as a lethal kinetic action, authorized under his powers as commander-in-chief. Legal scholars say the strike was part of a broader and unprecedented bombing campaign targeting small boats allegedly linked to criminal networks. By the time the Trinidad case was filed, dozens of similar strikes had reportedly been carried out, with an estimated death toll exceeding 100. Attorneys described the campaign as historically novel, noting the U.S. had never before claimed authority to bomb civilian vessels far from its borders outside a declared war. Questions about legality and proportionality also followed U.S. airstrikes in northwest Nigeria. On Christmas Day, U.S. Africa Command confirmed strikes on camps it said were linked to Islamic State militants. Trump publicly claimed responsibility, framing the operation as a decisive blow against extremists targeting Christians. Yet little verifiable information was released about who was killed or why that group was targeted. Nigerian and U.S. officials offered conflicting accounts, while independent researchers struggled to confirm casualty figures. Local sources reported civilian infrastructure damage and injuries far from the alleged target zone. Analysts questioned whether the strike was strategic or largely symbolic, reinforcing concerns that lethal force was deployed first and justified later. Those concerns intensified after a U.S. operation in Venezuela in early January, in which American forces captured President Nicolas Maduro and reportedly killed large numbers of Venezuelan and allied personnel. Venezuelan officials claimed dozens, possibly more than 100, were killed. The U.S. government provided no full accounting of casualties or the legal framework for the operation. Critics argued the episode demonstrated a willingness to use overwhelming force in sovereign countries without congressional authorization or international oversight. At home, similar controversies emerged. In Minnesota, the killing of Alex Prey by U.S. Border Patrol agents became a flashpoint after video footage contradicted early official claims. Federal officials initially described Prey as a dangerous extremist and labeled him a domestic terrorist. Video evidence later showed he had been tackled, disarmed, and shot repeatedly in the back. As public backlash grew, the White House softened its rhetoric while stopping short of retracting earlier statements. State officials said federal agents initially blocked access to the scene, raising further transparency concerns. Individually, each case sparked outrage. Taken together, civil liberties advocates argue they reveal a consistent pattern: an executive branch asserting sweeping authority to kill abroad and at home while minimizing scrutiny and resisting independent investigation. The Trump regime maintained its actions were lawful, often citing classified legal opinions and expansive interpretations of armed conflict. But ongoing lawsuits and investigations continue to challenge that position, particularly where civilians were killed far from any recognized battlefield. For the families of Chad Joseph and Rishi Samaru, the fight is about more than compensation. It is an attempt to force the U.S. government to answer a fundamental question: